I woke up and nearly died of shock. What I saw lying scattered across the pillow in jagged pieces next to me on the bed couldn't be true. I couldn't believe it. Someone had cut my beautiful long hair while I slept. The hair that had been on magazine covers. The hair everyone said made me unforgettable. The hair that gave me a successful modeling career and was about to land me my biggest deal ever. Huge chunks were hacked so close to my scalp, I could feel my skin. I touched my head, again and again, thinking this had to be a nightmare. I couldn't remember how I got to this bed. The only thing I remember was feeling so tired and dizzy. I touched my hair again to be sure this wasn't a nightmare. Then I screamed. I screamed so loud everyone in the house burst into the room with shocked faces. 15 minutes later, my 12-year-old adopted son was accused of cutting my hair and destroying my career, while the person who actually did it was standing there watching him take the fall. If you are someone who can't stand evil people and want to know how the perpetrator was exposed, keep watching and comment. I stand for justice. Also hit subscribe if you believe evil shouldn't go unpunished. Only haters, manipulators, and trolls won't subscribe. My name is Hannah Brooke. I'm 28 years old, and I live in Manhattan, New York, with my husband. I'm a fashion model, not Instagram famous, but real editorial work. Vogue, Elle, Harper's Bazaar. The kind of career most girls dream about, but very few actually build. I'd worked for 6 years to get there, starting with catalog shoots and department store campaigns, slowly climbing until my face was recognizable. My signature look was my hair, long, thick, naturally silky black hair that fell past my waist. Photographers loved it. Designers requested me specifically because of it. Then Prada happened. Prada, one of the biggest luxury fashion houses in the world, wanted me as the face of their new campaign. Not just any campaign, their global launch. We're talking billboards in Times Square, spreads in every major fashion magazine, a contract that would change my life. My husband Sinclair was so proud he'd called his parents immediately to tell them. That phone call set everything in motion, though I didn't know it yet. I should have seen the signs. The way my mother-in-law Grace's smile never quite reached her eyes when people complimented my appearance. How she'd changed the subject whenever my career came up. The comments that seemed supportive on the surface, but had barbs underneath. Must be nice to have everything handed to you based on looks, or I hope you're saving money. Modeling careers don't last forever. But I was trying so hard to make it work with Sinclair's family that I ignored the red flags. Sinclair and I met 4 years ago at a charity gala. He was working in corporate law. I was there as arm candy for a designer who'd dressed me. We talked all night about everything except what we did for a living, travel, books, the documentary we'd both seen about ocean conservation. He didn't care that I was a model. He cared that I'd read the same obscure poetry collection he had. We got married 2 years later in a small ceremony that his mother complained was too simple for family like theirs. The Brooks family had money. The kind that came with expectations and social circles and country club memberships that went back generations. Anderson Brooke, my father-in-law, owned a commercial real estate development firm. Grace didn't work. She volunteered on charity boards and hosted dinner parties and made sure everyone knew the Brooks family mattered. Their daughter Kimberly was 29, unmarried, and according to family whispers, struggling. She'd been through 5 serious relationships in 7 years, each one ending badly. Grace blamed the men. Everyone else blamed Kim. Then there was Tyler. Sweet, quiet Tyler who'd lost both his parents in a car accident 3 years ago. His father was Sinclair's older brother. When it happened, Sinclair and I had only been married 6 months, but we didn't hesitate. We took Tyler in. He was 9 years old and barely spoke for the first 3 months after the incident. Slowly, with therapy and patience and the stability of a home where he felt safe, he'd started to heal. He called us Mom and Dad now. He smiled again. He was ours. Grace had opinions about that too. She thought we should have let her raise Tyler, that a young couple wasn't equipped to handle a traumatized child, that my career made me an unsuitable guardian. But Sinclair insisted on raising him, since we didn't yet have children of our own. So Grace settled for undermining us at every opportunity, pointing out whenever Tyler struggled as proof we weren't capable. I assumed she didn't despise me, that she was just eager to have a grandchild from me. I believed she loved me. Because Sinclair had told her about my impending contract with Prada, she decided to host a dinner to celebrate me. It was to be hosted at their estate in Connecticut. The kind of sprawling property with a circular driveway and rooms that had names instead of numbers. We drove up Friday afternoon, me, Sinclair, and Tyler. Kimberly was already there with her friend Juliana, someone she'd met at a yoga retreat who seemed to share Kim's talent for backhanded compliments. Grace greeted us at the door, wearing pearls and a smile that made me feel uneasy. "Hannah, darling, you look radiant as always. That hair must take so much maintenance. I don't know how you manage it." I smiled back. "It's actually pretty simple once you have a routine." "Well, enjoy it while you can," she said, leading us inside. Everything fades eventually. Dinner started at 7. The dining room table was set for 8, formal china, 3 forks per setting, wine glasses that probably cost more than my first car. Anderson sat at the head, Grace at the foot. Sinclair and I were on one side with Tyler between us. Kim and Juliana sat across from us. The conversation was the usual mixture of family news and subtle competitions. Anderson talked about a new development project. Kim mentioned she was seeing someone new, though she was vague about details. Grace asked about the Prada campaign. "When do you leave for the shoot?" she asked, cutting her duck with precise movements. 2 weeks, I said. "We're shooting in Milan for 10 days, then Paris for the launch event." Fascinating. Grace's tone suggested it was anything but. "And Tyler, you'll be staying with us while they're gone?" Tyler looked at me nervously. We'd already arranged for him to stay with my sister, who he actually liked. "Actually, my sister Brianna's taking him," I interjected smoothly. "She lives closer to his school." Grace's fork paused midair. "I see. Well, I suppose that's decided then." After the main course, Grace disappeared into the kitchen to prepare dessert. She returned with a tray of wine glasses filled with something ruby red and fragrant. "Sangria," she announced. "Special recipe." She placed glasses in front of everyone, saving mine for last. "This one's for you, Hannah," she said, and passed me a glass. "I'd like to make a toast." She began after everyone had gotten their wine. "To Hannah and her exploding career." Everyone cheered and clinked glasses. I thanked her and took a sip. It was sweet, fruity, with an undertone I couldn't quite place. Bitter, almost medicinal. I set it down after a few sips, making conversation while the room grew warmer around me. The edges of things started to blur softly. "Are you all right?" Sinclair asked quietly, noticing me blink slowly. "Just tired from the drive," I said. "Maybe the wine on top of it." "You should lie down," Grace suggested immediately, her voice carrying across the table. "There's a guest room on the second floor, first door on the right. Go rest, dear. We'll save you some cake." The room swam slightly as I stood. Sinclair moved to help me, but Grace waved him off. "Let her rest, Sinclair. You know how these model types are, they barely eat, then 1 glass of wine, and they're out. She'll be fine in an hour." I remember walking up the stairs, each step requiring concentration. The hallway stretched longer than it should have. The guest room door was exactly where Grace said it would be. I made it to the bed, thinking I'd just close my eyes for 20 minutes. The pillow was soft. The room was spinning gently, like being on a boat. Then nothing. This was when Tyler came into the picture. Tyler had snuck away from the table during dessert. He'd seen a bowl of imported chocolates in the study earlier and wanted to grab a few while the adults were distracted. He slipped into the study, pocketed 3 chocolates wrapped in gold foil, and was heading back when he heard footsteps in the hallway. Grace's footsteps. Tyler froze. He wasn't supposed to be taking candy. He'd get in trouble. He looked around frantically and saw the guest room door slightly ajar. I forgot to lock it in my dizzy state. He darted inside, intending to wait until she passed, and saw me lying on the bed, deeply asleep. The room had heavy curtains with a small alcove behind them, the kind of old house design meant for dramatic window dressings. Tyler slipped behind the curtain just as the door opened fully. He watched through a gap in the fabric as his grandmother entered the room. She was carrying something. In the dim light filtering through the curtain, Tyler couldn't see clearly at first. Then Grace moved closer to the bed, and he saw the glint of metal. Scissors. Professional ones, long and sharp, the kind hairdressers use. Grace stood over me for a moment, looking down at my hair spread across the pillow. Then she lifted a section and cut. The scissors made a soft shearing sound. She cut again, and again, methodically working through my hair, section by section, some pieces long, others brutally short, close to the scalp in places. Tyler pressed his hand over his mouth to keep from making any sound. His heart hammered so hard he thought she'd hear it. It took maybe 3 minutes. When Grace finished, she gathered some of the cut hair, a small section still bound together, and put it in something Tyler couldn't quite see. A bag, maybe. Then she left the room as quietly as she'd entered, closing the door behind her. Tyler stayed frozen behind that curtain for what felt like hours, but was probably 2 minutes. His mind raced. Should he tell someone? Should he wake me up? What if Grandma Grace came back? Finally, moving as quietly as possible, he crept out from behind the curtain, past the bed where I lay sleeping with my destroyed hair, and opened the door. He didn't expect what he saw next. Grace was in the hallway. She grabbed his arms so fast he yelped. Her fingers dug into his skin as she pulled him away from the door, her face close to his, her voice a harsh whisper. "What were you doing in there?" I got lost looking for the bathroom, and you were in Hannah's room." It wasn't a question. Her eyes bored into his. "Did you touch anything? Did you do something to her?"
No.
I saw. Her grip tightened. "Listen to me very carefully, Tyler. If you tell anyone you were in that room, I'll tell them you're the one who cut her hair. They'll believe me. You know they will. A troubled little boy who's been acting out since his parents died. That's what they'll say. They'll send you away to a special school for children who can't be trusted. Is that what you want?" Tyler's eyes filled with tears. "But I didn't." "Then you'd better say nothing. Go back downstairs. Sit at the table. And if anyone asks, you were with us the whole time." She released him and smoothed her dress, her face transforming back into a pleasant smile. Tyler stumbled toward the stairs, his mind screaming but his voice trapped by fear and the terrible, familiar feeling of adults not believing him. He'd felt it before, after his parents died, when therapists asked him questions, and he knew they were analyzing every answer. He couldn't go through that again. He couldn't risk being sent away from the only home where he felt safe. So when he returned to the dining room, he sat down quietly and said nothing. Grace returned moments later with coffee service. The conversation continued. Time passed, 30 minutes, 40. Then my screams split the air. I'd woken up disoriented, my head thick with whatever had been in that drink. For a moment, I didn't know where I was. Then I moved, and something felt wrong.
Light.
My head felt too light. I reached up, and instead of smooth hair, my fingers found jagged edges, uneven lengths, bare scalp in places. I sat up, and hair fell from the pillow, long black pieces scattered everywhere. My hands moved frantically over my head, trying to understand what I was feeling. This couldn't be real. This couldn't be happening. I stumbled to the mirror across the room and saw myself in the dim light. My hair, my beautiful hair that had been my signature, my confidence, my career, was destroyed, hacked into scattered, uneven pieces. Some sections were 4 inches long. Others were barely a 1/4 inch, cut so close I could see my scalp pale against my skin. The scream that came out of me didn't sound human. Footsteps pounded up the stairs. The door burst open. Sinclair was first, his face confused, then shocked as he saw me standing there. Then Anderson, breathing hard from running. Then Kimberly and Juliana, their expressions shifting from concern to something else. Kim's mouth falling open, Juliana's hand covering hers, but not fast enough to hide the smile starting to form. Grace appeared last, Tyler beside her, the boy's face white with terror. Hannah, what? Sinclair stopped, staring at my hair. Oh my God. What happened? I couldn't speak. I just kept touching my head, making small wounded sounds, my legs shaking so badly I had to grab the dresser for support. Anderson pushed forward. Who did this? How did this happen? I don't know. I finally managed. I was sleeping and I woke up, and the words dissolved into sobs. It was then the unthinkable happened for Tyler. Grace's voice cut through the chaos, sharp and accusatory. Tyler, what have you done? Every head turned. Tyler stood in the doorway, small and frozen, his eyes huge with fear. What? Kim said. Tyler? No, he wouldn't. I saw him, Grace said, her voice trembling with what sounded like shock. Earlier, when Hannah went upstairs to rest. I saw him coming out of this room. I asked him what he was doing up here, and he said he was looking for the bathroom, but... She looked at Tyler with devastated disbelief. Tyler, were you not in this room a while ago? Yes, but Tyler's voice cracked. Then how do you explain this? Grace gestured at me, at the hair scattered across the bed and floor. You are the only one up here. I didn't do it. Tyler's voice rose to a desperate pitch. I didn't. I saw. Grace immediately interrupted him. Shut your mouth. You did this. His whole body was shaking. You saw what? Anderson demanded. Grace, allow him. Speak up, boy. Before Tyler could say another word, Grace grabbed his hands, put her hands in his pocket, and pulled out something black. There was a few strands of hair. Hannah's hair. Everyone gasped in disbelief. Earlier in the hallway, when Grace grabbed Tyler, she secretly stuffed some of Hannah's hair in his pocket to further implicate him. Tyler was crying now. I think Tyler needs to explain himself, Grace said softly, dangerously. This behavior, it's exactly what I warned you about, Sinclair. The trauma, the acting out. He needs professional help. He's 12 years old. Sinclair shouted, but his voice carried doubt. He looked at Tyler, at me, trying to make sense of something that made no sense. Kimberly stood near the wall, and I saw it. The flash of satisfaction on her face before she schooled it into concern. She was glad this happened to me. Whatever the reason, whatever jealousy or resentment had been building, she was happy to see me hurt. Juliana wasn't even trying to hide her smile anymore. Anderson's face was red with fury. Tyler, is this true? Did you do this to Hannah? No. Tyler sobbed. I didn't, I promise I didn't. Then who did? Anderson roared. The room fell silent except for my crying and Tyler's desperate gasps for air. Sinclair moved to Tyler, kneeling in front of him. Tyler, you need to tell me the truth right now. All of it. Were you in this room? Yes, Tyler whispered. Did you cut Hannah's hair?
No.
Tyler's voice was barely audible. Then what were you doing in here? Tyler opened his mouth, looked at Grace again, and closed it.
He couldn't say it.
The words wouldn't come. I think, Sinclair said slowly, standing up, everyone should leave so Hannah and I can have some privacy. Anderson looked like he wanted to argue, but Grace touched his arm.
Come on.
Give them space. She ushered everyone out, Tyler last, the boy's face devastated as he looked back at me. When the door closed, I collapsed against Sinclair, sobbing into his chest while he held me and said nothing because there was nothing to say. My hair was gone. My campaign was 2 weeks away. My career might be over. And somehow, impossibly, a 12-year-old child, our son, who we'd loved and protected and tried to help heal, was being blamed for destroying it all. But through my tears, through the shock and grief, one thought crystallized with absolute clarity. Tyler didn't do this. I knew that child. I'd watched him struggle with trauma, seen him learn to trust again, witnessed his gentleness with everything fragile. He didn't have this in him.
So who did?
I cried through that entire night. Sinclair held me, brought me water, kept saying we'd figure it out, we'd find the truth. But the truth felt impossible to grasp. The only people in the house were family and Juliana. The only person who'd been seen near the room was Tyler. And yet, every instinct I had screamed that this wasn't him. I think it was Juliana, I said finally, around 3 a.m. Kim's friend. Did you see how she smiled? Like she was enjoying it. But why would she do this? Sinclair asked gently. She barely knows you. I don't know. Maybe Kim put her up to it. You know how your sister feels about me. But even as I said it, I wasn't sure. Yes, Kim resented me. Yes, Juliana had smiled. But cutting someone's hair while they slept? That required more than casual malice. That required planning, opportunity, hatred. The next morning I called Ellen, my agent. My hands shook as I dialed. I explained there'd been an accident with my hair. I didn't say what kind, and asked if we could postpone. She was silent for a long moment, then asked me to give her a couple of minutes. I think she wanted to call Mira, the creative director at Prada, because a few minutes later, she sent me a text on WhatsApp that read, "Send me a photo." I took a selfie in the bathroom, the morning light cruel on my destroyed hair. I looked like I'd been attacked. I sent it. Ellen called back 10 minutes later. We're not postponing. We're pivoting. This is the campaign. What? Real beauty can't be cut down, she said. That's the new tagline from Prada. You've spent years being known for your hair, Hannah. Now you're going to be known for being more than it. Come to Milan. We shoot in 2 weeks as planned. I hung up and stared at myself in the mirror. My hair was so uneven that I'd need to cut it all off, a very low cut, maybe even buzzed. The signature look that had defined my career would be gone. But Ellen was right. What choice did I have? Sit here and let whoever did this win? Or turn it into something that mattered? I called my stylist. Can you come to my apartment today? Emergency. 3 hours later, my hair was gone. Not just cut short, clippered close all over, maybe half an inch left. I looked like a different person. Without the curtain of black hair, my features were stark, exposed. I looked harder, stronger, maybe. Or maybe just scared. That afternoon, I called Tyler. He'd been avoiding me since the dinner, hiding in his room. Can you come talk to me? Just the two of us. He appeared in the doorway of our home office, eyes red from crying. When he saw my buzzed head, he flinched. I'm sorry, he whispered. Come here. I patted the couch beside me. Tyler, I need you to tell me the truth. Just me, no one else listening. What really happened in that room? He was silent for a long time. Then, slowly, haltingly, it all came out. The chocolates he'd snuck to steal. Hiding behind the curtain. Watching Grace cut my hair while I slept, unable to move or make a sound out of sheer terror. Grace catching him in the hallway and threatening him. If he told, she'd blame him, and they'd send him away because everyone already thought he was damaged. I listened without interrupting, my heart breaking and my rage building in equal measure. When he finished, I pulled him into a hug. I believe you, I said into his hair. I believe every word. He cried then, the kind of crying that sounded like it was tearing him apart. I wanted to tell you, he sobbed, but I was so scared. I can't go away. I can't lose you and Dad. You're not going anywhere, I said fiercely. You're my son. Nothing changes that. Nothing. But after I sent Tyler to his room with promises that everything would be okay, I sat alone and faced the real problem. I had no proof. It was Tyler's word against Grace's. And Grace, wealthy, respected, Sinclair's mother, would be believed over a traumatized child every time. The family already saw Tyler as damaged. This would only confirm their worst fears about him. I needed evidence. Something concrete. Something undeniable. I just had no idea where to find it. 2 weeks passed. I flew to Milan. The Prada shoot was unlike anything I'd ever done. Raw, powerful, stripped down. Without my hair, the focus was entirely on my face, my expression, my presence. Mira shot me in stark lighting, no soft filters, making me look directly into the camera with all the vulnerability and strength I'd found in the worst moment of my life. Real beauty can't be cut down, the tagline read across the images. The campaign launched 3 days later. Within hours, it was everywhere, not just in fashion circles, but mainstream. News outlets picked it up. Model Hannah Brooke turns devastating incident into powerful statement about beauty standards. Social media exploded. My Instagram followers tripled. The story, or the version people knew, about an accident that led to a radical transformation, resonated with millions of people. Grace's attempt to destroy me had backfired spectacularly. Tyler was still branded as disturbed, and Grace was still walking around free, untouched by consequences. But then everything was about to change. Tyler and I were about to get justice from the most unexpected person. Kimberly had a date. His name was Asher, an architect she'd met at a gallery opening. It was their 3rd date, and Kim wanted to impress him. She drove to her parents' house in Connecticut to borrow some jewelry. Her mother had an extensive collection, and Grace had always been generous about letting Kim borrow pieces for special occasions. Grace wasn't home. She was at a charity luncheon. Anderson was at his office. Kim let herself in with her key and went up to her parents' bedroom, to the walk-in closet where Grace kept her jewelry organized in velvet-lined drawers. Kim was looking for a specific necklace, a gold choker with emeralds that would go perfectly with her dress. She opened the drawer where it should be, pushed aside some other pieces, and then opened the drawer below it where Grace kept costume jewelry and odds and ends. That's when she found something. A small silk pouch she hadn't seen her mother use, the kind expensive jewelry comes in, tucked at the back of the drawer, underneath some tangled bracelets. Kim almost ignored it, but something made her pick it up. It was heavier than it should be. She opened it. Inside was a lock of hair, long, straight, distinctive black hair, tied with a thin red ribbon. There was no mistaking it. It was my hair. Underneath it, folded carefully, a magazine clipping. The headline reading, "The New Face of American Fashion." Kim stared at it. Why would her mother have this? Why would she keep the hair, like some kind of trophy? She tried to rationalize it. Maybe Grace kept it as evidence, to prove Tyler had done it. That almost made sense. But the ribbon? The careful folding of the magazine clipping? The way it was hidden in a drawer Grace thought no one would search? Kim's hands were shaking as she put the pouch back exactly where she'd found it. She grabbed the emerald necklace, almost forgetting why she'd come, and was about to leave when she saw her mother's designer clutch, a black Chanel bag that Grace had bought in Paris last year, sitting on the closet shelf. Perfect for her date. She pulled it down and checked inside to make sure it was empty. It wasn't quite. There was a folded receipt at the bottom. Kim almost threw it away. But something, maybe the same instinct that made her open the silk pouch, made her unfold it. CVS Pharmacy. Dated 3 days before the dinner. The items listed: Ambien sleep aid, 10 milligrams, 30 tablets. Latex gloves, size small, box of 50. Professional hair shears, 8-inch. Antiseptic wipes, travel pack. Kim stopped breathing. She read it again. And again. Each item separately could be explained. Together, they formed a pattern. A plan. No. No way. Her mother couldn't. This had to be a coincidence. People buy sleeping pills. They buy gloves for cleaning. The scissors could be for anything, garden work, crafts, household repairs. But professional hair shears? 8-inch? Those weren't household scissors. And the date. 3 days before the dinner. Before my hair was cut, Kim stuffed the receipt into her purse, grabbed the Chanel clutch, and left the house. Her mind spun the entire drive back to Manhattan. By the time she met Asher at the restaurant, an upscale Italian place in the West Village, she was completely distracted. "You okay?" Asher asked after they'd ordered. "You seem somewhere else." "Just work stress," Kim lied, forcing a smile. She reached for her wine glass and nearly knocked it over. Her hands wouldn't stop shaking. Throughout dinner, she barely touched her food. She checked her phone obsessively. Asher would ask her questions, and she'd give one-word answers, her mind replaying the pharmacy receipt over and over. Professional hair shears. Sleep aid.
Gloves.
The lock of hair tied with a ribbon. The magazine clipping.
No.
It couldn't be. "This is the third date where you've been checked out," Asher said finally, his patience clearly exhausted. "Last time you spent an hour complaining about your sister-in-law. The time before that you were rude to our waiter." "I wasn't," Kim started defensively. "You told her the wine was garbage before you'd even tasted it," Asher interrupted. "Look, Kim, I need to be honest with you. Do you know what people say about you?" The question hit like a slap. "What people?" "Friends. People who've dated you before. They say you're self-absorbed, that you blame everyone else when things go wrong. He paused, seeming to choose his words carefully. That you're still acting like you're in high school and you're 29 years old." Kim's face burned. That's not fair." "Maybe not. That's why I wanted to give you a chance. I thought maybe people were wrong. Maybe you just needed someone who understood you." Asher leaned back in his chair. "But you don't want understanding, Kim. You want enablement, just like your mother gives you." "Don't bring my mother into this." "Your mother treats you like you can do no wrong," Asher said quietly. "And look where it's gotten you. You're 29, Kim. When are you going to grow up?" Kim stood up so fast her chair scraped loudly against the floor. Other diners turned to look. "This date is over." She walked out of the restaurant, still clutching the Chanel bag, the receipt burning a hole in her purse. Asher's words echoed in her head all the way to her car. "Self-absorbed. Blames everyone else. Still acting like you're in high school." It wasn't true. It couldn't be true. But as she drove aimlessly through Manhattan, not ready to go home, she realized something terrifying. She couldn't remember the last time a relationship had ended, and she'd thought maybe it was her fault.
It was always the guy who was intimidated.
Or didn't appreciate her. Or couldn't handle a strong woman. That's what her mother always said. "People like Hannah get all the advantages," Grace would tell her. "It's not fair. You're better than her. You just need the right person to see it." Kim pulled over near Washington Square Park and opened her purse. She pulled out the receipt again, reading it in the glow of the streetlight. Then she pulled out her phone and searched, "Professional hair shears 8-inch." The results showed salon-quality scissors. The kind hairdressers used. Not craft scissors. Not household shears. Scissors for cutting hair. Kim sat in her car until past midnight, unable to drive, unable to think. Finally, she put the car in gear and drove to her parents' house. The lights were still on. Her mother was always a night owl. Grace answered the door in her robe, surprised. "Kimberly? What's wrong? How was your date?" Kim stepped inside without answering. Her eyes felt swollen, raw. "Can we talk?" "Of course, darling." Grace led her to the living room, the same house where my hair had been cut just weeks ago. She poured them both generous glasses of Pinot Noir and settled onto the couch beside Kim. "What happened?" "Asher ended things," Kim said, the words tasting bitter. "Oh, honey." Grace pulled her into a hug. "I'm so sorry. What was his excuse this time?" Kim pulled away. "He said I blame everyone else for my problems. That I never look at myself." "That's ridiculous," Grace said immediately. Men always say things like that when they feel threatened by successful women. Am I successful, Mom? Kim asked quietly. I mean, really? What have I actually accomplished? You're perfect exactly as you are. It's the world that's wrong, not you. Grace sipped her wine. Men just can't handle women who don't bend for them. Not like Hannah and her type. Kim's blood went cold. What do you mean, her type? Oh, you know. Grace waved her hand dismissively.
Docile.
Perfect little dolls who never challenge anything. Everything handed to them on a silver platter. The looks, the career, the perfect husband, my son. Kim's voice came out small. Do you think maybe Asher was right? Maybe I am the problem. Grace's face hardened. Don't you dare. You are not the problem. People like Hannah, they make women like us feel inadequate. But you know what? She took a long drink of wine, her words starting to slur slightly. That luck can be taken away just as easily as it's given. The room fell silent. Kim could hear her heartbeat in her ears. What does that mean? Grace smiled, a strange, cold smile that didn't reach her eyes. Some women have everything handed to them. But you know what? That precious hair everyone loved so much. She paused, meeting Kim's eyes. It didn't cut itself. The grandfather clock in the hallway ticked.
Once. Twice.
3 times. Kim's voice was barely a whisper. What did you just say? Grace seemed to realize what she'd revealed. She laughed, but it sounded forced. I'm speaking hypothetically, darling. I just meant that sometimes people's advantages don't last.
No.
Kim stood up. Tell me what you meant. Kimberly, sit down. Did you cut Hannah's hair? The question hung in the air like smoke. Grace's face went through several expressions, shock, denial, calculation, before settling on defensive. Why would you ask that? Kim reached into her purse with shaking hands and pulled out the pharmacy receipt. She held it up. Sleeping pills.
Gloves.
Professional hair shears. 3 days before the dinner. Grace's face went pale. And this? Kim's voice was getting louder. I found this in your drawer. She pulled out the pharmacy receipt. She didn't mention the tied hair and newspaper clip, afraid to confront her mother with it yet. You went through my things? Grace's voice was sharp. You drugged her.
Kim was screaming now.
You cut her hair while she was unconscious. And then you blamed Tyler, a 12-year-old boy who already lost his parents. I did not. Grace's voice was rising. Yes, you did, Mum, you did. Admit it. Kim was now crying and getting hysterical. All right, yes. I did it. I did what I had to do. Grace snapped back, her composure cracking. For you. Because Hannah was taking everything. She had the looks, the career, the opportunities that should have been yours if you'd just been given the same advantages. No. Kim's voice broke. No, you didn't do this for me. You did this because she couldn't even say it. Because you can't stand seeing anyone else have something you think we deserve. I'm your mother, Grace said coldly. I was protecting you. You blamed a child. Kim was crying now, ugly tears streaming down her face. Tyler saw you, didn't he? That's why you threatened him. That's why he couldn't tell the truth. You traumatized him all over again. Grace stood up, her face hard. If you tell anyone this, you'll destroy this family. Kim looked at her mother, maybe for the first time in her life. She saw the bitterness, the jealousy, the need to control everything and everyone around her. She saw where she'd learned to blame others, to never look at herself, to think the world owed her something just for existing. She saw Asher's words made real. No, Mom, Kim said quietly, wiping her face. You already destroyed it. She walked out, got in her car, and drove away. She didn't go home. She sat in a 24-hour diner until sunrise, drinking beer and staring at that pharmacy receipt, knowing what she had to do and terrified to do it. At 6 a.m, she called me. Hannah? It's Kim. I need to see you.
Now.
It's about your hair. An hour later, Kim sat in my living room, looking haggard with swollen eyes. Sinclair had taken Tyler to school. It was just the two of us, cups of coffee between us on the table, and she told me everything. The pharmacy receipt. The lock of my hair in the silk pouch with the magazine clipping. Grace's wine-soaked confession that hair didn't cut itself. The revelation that Grace had done it for Kimberly because I supposedly had everything while Kim had nothing. When she finished, Kim was crying again. I'm so sorry. Not just for what she did, but for... She gestured helplessly. When I first saw your hair cut, before I knew it was my mother, I was happy about it. I smiled. I was glad something bad happened to you, and I don't even know why. I've spent my whole life being jealous of people like you, and I never stopped to ask why, or if it was even real. I reached across the table and took her hand. Thank you for telling me. I know what that cost you. Tyler needs to know the truth came out, Kim said. The family needs to know he didn't do this. And my mother, her voice hardened. My mother needs to face what she's done. How do we do that? I asked. Kim thought for a moment. We tell everyone. Together. All at once. So she can't spin it or lie her way out. Sunday dinner. I'll call everyone, my dad, Sinclair, Tyler, you, me. Everyone present to hear the truth. I nodded slowly. Your father doesn't know? I don't think so. He would have stopped her. Or... Kim's face crumpled. I want to believe he would have. We spent the next hour planning. Kim called her father first. Dad, I need to have a family dinner this weekend. Sunday. Everyone needs to be there. You, Mom, Sinclair, Hannah, Tyler, and me. Anderson's voice came through the speaker, confused. What's this about, Kimberly? It's about what happened to Hannah. I have information everyone needs to hear. Her voice was steady now, determined.
Please, Dad.
It's important. There was a long pause. All right. Sunday at 6. I'll make sure your mother's there. When Kim hung up, she looked at me. She's going to know something's wrong. She'll be suspicious. Good, I said. Let her be nervous. Let her wonder what's coming. The next 2 days felt endless. Tyler knew something was happening, but not what. I told him only that the truth was coming out soon, and he needed to be brave enough to tell his story one more time. His face went pale, but he nodded. Sinclair sensed the tension, but didn't push. He'd learned to trust that I'd tell him when I was ready. Sunday arrived. We drove to Anderson and Grace's house in Connecticut, the same house where this nightmare had started. My stomach was tight with nerves. Tyler sat in the back seat, quiet and tense. Grace opened the door. She looked at me, then Kim, her eyes calculating. Kimberly, what's all this about? We'll explain inside, Kim said coolly. A few minutes later, Juliana walked in. Kim also invited her. We gathered in the dining room, the same room where Grace had served me that drugged sangria. Anderson sat at the head of the table, looking between his daughter and his wife, with growing concern. Sinclair sat beside me, holding my hand. Tyler was on my other side, so small in his chair. Grace sat at the far end, her hands clasped tightly in front of her, her face a mask of careful composure. Kim stood. For a long moment, she just looked at her mother. Then she spoke. Tyler didn't cut Hannah's hair. Mom did. The room exploded. Grace shot to her feet. That is absolutely not true. Kimberly, how dare you? Sit down, Kim said, her voice like ice. I have proof. Grace's face went white, but she remained standing. Anderson looked between them, stunned, finding it hard to process what was playing out before him. Kimberly, what are you talking about? Kim pulled the pharmacy receipt from her purse and handed it to her father. 3 days before the dinner. Sleeping pills, latex gloves, and professional hair shears. Check the date. Anderson read it, his face darkening. He looked at Grace. Explain this. It's a coincidence, Grace stammered. I bought those things for other reasons. Tyler, Kim said gently, turning to the boy. Tell them what really happened. Tyler's voice shook, but he did it. He told them about sneaking into the study for chocolates, hiding behind the curtain when he heard Grace coming, watching her cut my hair while I was unconscious, Grace catching him in the hallway and threatening him. If he told, she'd blame him, and they'd send him away because everyone already thought he was damaged. She said I was troubled, Tyler whispered. That they wouldn't believe me, that I'd get sent away. Grace tried to interrupt multiple times, but Kim shut her down. He's not finished. When Tyler finished, there were tears running down his face. I squeezed his hands in reassurance. None of that is true, Grace said, but her voice lacked conviction. He's confused. Then explain this, Kim said. She looked at her father. There's a silk pouch in Mom's underwear drawer. In her closet. Go check. Anderson stood immediately. Grace lunged forward. Don't you dare go through my things. If there's nothing there, you have nothing to hide, Anderson said coldly. He walked out. We heard his footsteps on the stairs. The wait was agonizing. Grace stood frozen, her face cycling through expressions, panic, rage, calculation. Kim stared at her mother with something like grief. Anderson returned, holding the silk pouch. He opened it at the table, his hands shaking. The lock of black hair fell out, still tied with the red ribbon. The magazine clipping fluttered after it. My face, my old hair, the headline about my career. Grace, Anderson said, his voice barely controlled. What is this? Grace opened her mouth, closed it, opened it again. I kept it as evidence. Against Tyler. To prove. Why is it tied with a ribbon? I asked quietly. Why is my magazine cover folded underneath it like a keepsake? Grace's composure finally shattered. Because you had everything, she screamed. The career, the beauty, the opportunities. You were taking my son, influencing him against us, making him choose you over his own family. And Kimberly, she could have had all of that if she'd just been born with your advantages. So you drugged her? Sinclair's voice was deadly quiet. You cut her hair while she was unconscious? And then you blamed a 12-year-old child. I did it for Kimberly, Grace shrieked, pointing at her daughter. For you. Because you deserve better than watching perfect Hannah have everything handed to her. Kim's voice cut through the chaos like a blade. I didn't ask you to do this. I didn't want this. You did this because you're bitter and jealous and you can't stand seeing anyone else be happy. I'm your mother. You blamed a child. Kim was screaming now, all her composure gone. You traumatized Tyler all over again. You are going to let him be branded as dangerous, as disturbed, for something you did. Anderson slammed his hand on the table. The sound was like a gunshot. Everyone fell silent. He looked at his wife of 43 years, and his face was full of devastation. Juliana was silent all through the exchanges, a morbid look on her face. Grace, Anderson said quietly. Why? Grace's face crumpled. Then she said, barely audible, I thought it would just make her sick. Make her miss her gallery opening. Show Sinclair she wasn't reliable. I didn't plan to. She gestured helplessly at me. But when I saw her lying there and that hair, everyone always talked about that hair, You just decided to destroy her career, Sinclair finished, his voice hollow. And when Tyler saw you, you decided to destroy him too. Anderson walked to where Tyler sat, small and terrified, and knelt in front of him. Tyler, I am so deeply sorry. We should have believed you. I should have protected you. Can you forgive me? Tyler nodded, tears streaming down his face, and Anderson pulled him into a hug. Then Anderson stood and looked at his wife. Everyone out. I need to speak with Grace alone. We filed out into the hallway. Kim was crying. Sinclair held Tyler, who was shaking with relief and residual fear. I just felt numb. watching my mother-in-law through the doorway as she stood alone in that dining room, finally facing the consequences of her cruelty. We waited in the foyer for 30 minutes. When Anderson emerged, his face was gray. Grace has agreed to move out. We're separating. She'll stay with her sister in Boston he stopped. While we figure out what comes next.
He looked at me.
Hannah, I don't expect you to forgive any of this. What she did was unforgivable. But for what it's worth, I had no knowledge of her plans. If I had. I know, I said quietly. I believe you. He turned to Tyler. You will never be sent away. You understand me? You are part of this family. You are safe. Tyler nodded, unable to speak. Kim touched her father's arm. I'm sorry I didn't come to you sooner. You came when you could, Anderson said. That took courage. We left them there, Anderson and Grace, their marriage ending in that house where so much damage had been done. On the drive home, Tyler fell asleep in the back seat, exhausted from finally being freed from the weight he'd carried. Is it really over? Sinclair asked quietly. The truth is out, I said. That's what matters. But I knew it wasn't quite over. The aftermath was just beginning. The next week, Tyler started intensive therapy. His therapist said he'd been showing signs of post-traumatic stress from the accusation, nightmares, anxiety, fear of being abandoned. Knowing the truth had come out was the first step toward healing, but the damage Grace had done would take time to repair. Anderson filed for divorce. Word spread quickly through their social circle, Grace Brooks' bizarre attack on her daughter-in-law, the child she'd blamed. The story got distorted in the retelling, but the core truth remained. Grace had done something unforgivable. Friends stopped calling. Country club memberships were quietly revoked. She moved to her sister's apartment in Boston, effectively exiled from the life she'd tried so desperately to control. Kimberly started therapy too, real therapy, not the kind where she complained about everyone else. She called me 3 weeks after the dinner. I'm trying to understand why I became the person I was, she said. My therapist says I learned everything from watching my mother. How to blame others. How to play victim. How to never look at myself. She paused. I don't want to be her, Hannah. I don't know if I can change, but I want to try. That's all any of us can do, I told her. 2 months later, Kim called again. I started volunteering at a youth center. For kids who've lost parents. I thought maybe I could help them. Try to be better than I was. That's really good, Kim. Tyler told me once that the worst part wasn't losing his parents. It was when no one believed him after. When the adults he trusted thought he was lying. Her voice cracked. I want to be the person who believes them. The Prada campaign continued to explode. Real beauty can't be cut down became more than a tagline. It became a movement. Women shared their own stories of being judged on appearance, of surviving attempts to diminish them. My short hair became iconic in a different way than my long hair ever was. I booked 3 more major campaigns within a month. Grace's attempt to destroy me had made me more successful than I'd ever been. The universe has a strange sense of irony. 3 months after everything came out, Kim called and asked if she could take us all to dinner, her treat. She wanted to try to be part of the family the right way, she said. We met at a restaurant in Manhattan, me, Sinclair, Tyler, Anderson, and Kim. It was tentative, awkward in places. But Tyler smiled when Kim asked about his soccer team. Anderson talked about his work without the edge of judgment he used to carry. Kim ordered dessert for the table, without once complaining about calories or comparing herself to anyone. At one point, Tyler looked at me and said, "Your hair's growing back. It looks nice. But you looked pretty the other way too." Kim watched this exchange with something like wonder on her face. "You know what I'm learning," she said quietly. "Real beauty isn't about hair or clothes or magazine covers. It's about," she gestured around the table,
This.
choosing truth when it costs you something. Protecting people who need it. Being brave enough to admit when you're wrong. I reached over and squeezed her hand. "You're already better, Kim." Anderson raised his glass. "To new beginnings, to truth, and to family, the real kind, built on honesty and love." We clinked glasses, even Tyler with his soda. For the first time in years, the Brooks family felt like it might actually survive. Different than before. Smaller, with Grace's absence a wound that would take time to heal.
But honest. Real.
That night, after Tyler was asleep, Sinclair found me in our bedroom, looking at my reflection. My hair was growing back, maybe 2 inches now, still short but softening around my face. "Do you regret it?" he asked. "Not the hair, I mean fighting back. Pushing for the truth. It would have been easier to just let it go." I thought about Tyler's face when Anderson apologized. Kim's voice when she called to say she was trying to change. My own reflection, different than before, but still me. Maybe more me than I'd ever been. "No," I said finally. "Grace tried to cut me down to make herself feel powerful. But real power isn't about controlling others or tearing them apart. It's about standing up when it would be easier to stay silent. It's about protecting people who can't protect themselves. It's about choosing truth even when it costs you." I turned from the mirror to face him. She tried to destroy me. Instead, she freed me from caring what people like her think, from measuring myself against impossible standards, from being afraid to take up space. Sinclair pulled me close. "You're incredible, you know that?" "I'm just someone who refused to stay down," I said. "That's not incredible. That's just necessary." 6 months later, I'm preparing for Paris Fashion Week. My hair is growing now, though still way shorter than it was, still different. Prada wants me to walk in their show, not as a model displaying clothes, but as the face of their campaign, speaking about beauty and resilience, and refusing to be defined by other people's cruelty. Tyler's doing better. He still has hard days, but therapy is helping.
He knows he's safe now. He knows he's believed.
Anderson comes to Sunday dinners at our house now. He and Grace are officially divorced. He seems lighter somehow, like he's discovering who he is without her influence. Kim texts me weekly updates from therapy. She's dating someone new, a teacher who apparently called her out when she tried to blame a restaurant for her being late, and she actually apologized instead of getting defensive. "Growth," she texted me, with a laughing emoji. Grace lives in Boston. I heard through Anderson that she's in therapy too, court-mandated as part of the divorce settlement. I don't know if she's actually changing or just going through the motions. Honestly, I don't spend much time thinking about her anymore. Because here's what I learned. Grace tried to cut me down because she couldn't stand seeing someone else shine. But you can't dim someone else's light to make your own brighter. That's not how light works. The best revenge wasn't destroying her back. It wasn't public humiliation or legal action or making her suffer. The best revenge was building a life so full of love and truth and genuine success that her attempt to hurt me became nothing more than a story I sometimes tell, a dark moment that taught me who I really was and what I was capable of surviving. Tyler learned he was stronger than he knew. Kim learned she could choose to be different than the patterns she'd inherited. Anderson learned it's never too late to stand up for what's right. Sinclair and I learned that protecting each other sometimes means fighting battles that aren't easy or comfortable. And me, I learned that real beauty, the kind that matters, the kind that lasts, can't be cut down. Not by scissors. Not by cruelty. Not by people who need you to be small so they can feel big. I'm standing in front of the mirror now, getting ready for the Prada show. My hair catches the light, shorter than it was, different than before. But still mine. Still strong. Still growing. And I'm smiling. Because Grace tried to destroy me, and instead, she helped me become exactly who I was always meant to be. Someone who refuses to be cut down. Someone who stands back up. Someone who knows that the most powerful response to cruelty isn't revenge. It's refusing to let it define you. That's real beauty. And no one can take that away. If this story gripped you, if it made you think twice about hatred, betrayal, and what it really means to find justice, then you'll want to stick around. Every week, I share more real-life revenge stories, raw, unfiltered, and packed with lessons most people only learn the hard way. So if you don't want to miss the next one, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. Not for me, for you. Because the best stories aren't just entertaining, they're warnings, they're reminders, and sometimes they're the little spark that keeps you from making the same mistake. And if you got value out of this one, show some love with a like. It tells me you're ready for more.